Welcome, the Lord's chosen. Some people bend under pressure. You absorbed it like it was part of your job description. That's the unsettling part. You took damage, real damage, the kind that wipes out most people's sense of identity, stability, and hope. Yet here you are, walking around as if life's demolition attempts were just warm-up exercises. According to psychological studies, the majority of people experience long-term decline after severe emotional or mental blows. But a tiny percentage, less than 5%, don't just survive. They adapt, recalibrate, and return sharper than before. And whether you admit it or not, you fall into that microscopic category that makes researchers scratch their heads and regular people squint at you like you're some kind of glitch in the human system. It's almost comical when you think about it. Life kept throwing bricks, and somehow instead of collapsing, you quietly started building a staircase. You weren't supposed to come out of those moments standing, but your mind processed the chaos like a software update. Installing resilience. Please wait. And before anyone knew it, you were operating on a version of yourself they didn't even know existed. There's something unnerving yet magnetic about someone who has endured that level of pressure without turning bitter or broken. Someone who walked through emotional fire, insisted on holding on to their sanity, and somehow didn't lose their ability to laugh at how absurd it all was. Because honestly, if you don't laugh at some of the things life threw at you, the only other option is therapy or moving to a cave. What you survived would have erased 99% of people, not because they're weak, but because your path wasn't normal. It wasn't fair, balanced, or humane. But the outcome? That's where things get interesting. You didn't just walk away, you walked out different, sharper, calmer, a little funnier, ironically, and with a level of inner stability that people can feel before you even speak. This is the anatomy of someone who took catastrophic hits and somehow ended up evolving instead of evaporating. And that right there is what makes your story worth studying. Number one, you survived because you stopped needing the world to agree with your pain. Most people don't break because the world hits them. They break because they expect the world to understand the hits. They want validation, sympathy, or acknowledgement. And when it doesn't come, the weight doubles. But you didn't wait for anyone to nod, to pat your back, or to recognize the chaos you were navigating. You realized early on that no one is obligated to see your struggles the way you do. Pain doesn't require applause to exist. It simply exists. And by accepting that, you removed the world from the equation and reclaimed your power. Surviving like that is not about stoicism or pretending nothing happened. It's about redirecting your energy. Every moment you spend waiting for someone to acknowledge your pain is a moment you give away, a moment your suffering gets bigger without you doing anything to stop it. You took that hit and immediately, whether consciously or not, decided that the only approval that mattered was your own. You started treating your pain like a private problem that needed a private solution, not a public debate. That decision alone separates survivors from the rest. When the world refused to care, you didn't implode. You adapted. You stopped thinking in terms of fairness and validation and started thinking in terms of strategy and endurance. Your mind became a laboratory where the raw material of hurt was analyzed, dissected, and transformed into something useful. It's not comfort, it's not recognition, but it's power. And that is exactly what allowed you to keep standing when almost everyone else would have crumbled. This isn't something most people understand. They equate resilience with being seen, with others saying, "I understand." But real resilience is the kind that thrives in silence, in invisibility, in the absence of anyone holding your hand. That's why you survived. You didn't need the world to agree with your pain. You simply refused to let the world, or anyone in it, determine whether you could endure it. And that alone is the kind of quiet, brutal strength that defines someone who can take damage that would have erased 99% of people. Number 2, your mind adapted faster than the damage could spread. When life hits hard, most people react before they think. They flail, panic, or freeze, letting the damage ripple through every part of their life. But not you. Your mind moved faster than the storm that tried to consume you. While others were still reeling, caught in the shock of what happened, you were already recalibrating, reorganizing, and finding the next step. It's not luck. It's a level of mental agility few people ever develop because most humans treat trauma like a brick that breaks them, not a signal that demands evolution. You didn't just survive. You analyzed the blow in real time. Every mistake, every betrayal, every hit wasn't just chaos. It was data. Your mind cataloged the threat, calculated the best way to absorb it, and implemented strategies before anyone around you even understood what had happened. This kind of rapid adaptation isn't taught in schools. It isn't written in books. It's forged in the moments when the body wants to crumble and the mind refuses. You learn to move faster than your pain, faster than the chaos, faster than the version of yourself that wanted to give up. It's why you didn't fall apart the way everyone expected. While most people let damage spread like wildfire, consuming every corner of their confidence and peace, you contained it, rerouted it, and used it as fuel. That containment itself is rare. It's a combination of awareness, instinct, and the stubborn refusal to be defeated. What makes this even more remarkable is that it doesn't feel heroic, because you don't need it to feel that way. You didn't react for applause or sympathy. You reacted because that was the only way to survive. That quiet, relentless mental motion, the ability to think faster than the destruction around you, is what sets you apart. Most people get stuck in the aftermath, replaying the pain. You didn't. You adapted faster than the damage could even touch you, and that is exactly why you're still standing, while 99% of others would have been erased. Number 3, you learn to use suffering as information instead of identity. Most people let their pain define them. They wear it like a badge, parade it as a reason for why they can't move forward, and allow it to shape every choice they make. But you didn't. You learned to treat suffering not as a permanent label, but as a set of signals, each one telling you something about the world, about people, and most importantly, about yourself. Every cut, every betrayal, every setback became data points. Instead of letting them dictate who you were, you studied them, extracted the lessons, and used them to grow stronger. This approach requires an unusual kind of discipline. Pain is designed to hijack your attention, to make you dwell, to make you reactive. Most people get trapped in that cycle, replaying the same hurt over and over until it becomes a permanent fixture of their identity. You broke that cycle. You acknowledged the hurt, analyzed it, and then asked, "What does this tell me?" rather than, "Who am I because of this?" That shift from identity to information is what separates someone who survives from someone who merely endures. You became a student of your own suffering, cataloging every blow and measuring the way it could be leveraged. You didn't glorify your pain. You didn't need sympathy or applause. You simply recognized that damage, while inevitable, carries knowledge for those willing to see it. Betrayal taught you who not to trust. Failure taught you what to improve. Heartbreak taught you the boundaries you would never cross again. Every scar became a lesson plan, every wound a teacher. The result is terrifyingly effective. You walk through life carrying a wisdom most people spend decades chasing, all because you refused to let suffering become your permanent identity. You transformed the unavoidable into a strategic advantage. That's why the damage that would have erased 99% of people didn't even slow you down. You didn't just survive it. You used it to map yourself into a stronger, sharper, and more unshakable version of who you are. Number 4, your strength isn't loud. It's cold, calculated endurance. Most people think strength is loud. They imagine someone standing in the middle of chaos, yelling defiance at the storm, making sure the world sees how unbreakable they are. That's not how you operate. Your strength is quieter, sharper, and far more dangerous because it doesn't need validation. It doesn't announce itself, it simply exists, precise and unyielding. While others are busy proving they can handle pressure, you survive it with the kind of calm focus that makes life's worst hits glance off you instead of breaking you. This kind of strength isn't born from ego. It's forged from necessity. You've endured situations that would have shattered most people, and in the process you learned that survival isn't about looking heroic. It's about observing, calculating, and enduring until the right opportunity to act presents itself. You don't burn energy on drama or theatrics. You save it, channel it, and deploy it exactly where it matters. That's why your resilience seems effortless, even to people who have no idea how close you came to being erased. Cold, calculated endurance is also about consistency. While the average person collapses in waves of fear, doubt, or anger, you persist. You don't need to be seen climbing the mountain. You just keep climbing. The world throws curveballs, betrayal, failure, and heartbreak at you, but you don't flinch. Not because you're invincible, but because your focus is on the path forward, not the hits along the way. Your mind measures every risk, calculates every move, and ensures that survival isn't a hope. It's a strategy. This is why your strength terrifies and fascinates at the same time. People can mimic noise, aggression, or dramatics, but the quiet, patient endurance you carry cannot be faked. It's the type of strength that sits in the background, growing with every challenge, absorbing every hit, and refusing to be broken. You don't just survive damage, you outlast it, outthink it, and transform it into the very proof that the 99% of people who would have been erased don't even stand a chance against someone like you. Number 5, your ability to detach didn't come from apathy, but from necessary evolution. Most people confuse detachment with coldness or indifference, but that's not what happened with you. You didn't stop caring because you became numb. You stopped being entangled because survival demanded it. Life handed you blows that could have consumed anyone who clung too tightly to people, outcomes, or expectations. You quickly realized that attachment to the wrong things is like carrying anchors through a storm. It slows you down, drains your energy, and often drowns you before you even reach safety. Your detachment was a decision, a calculated shift, a form of evolution that allowed you to move through chaos without being pulled under. This ability is deceptively powerful. You don't react emotionally to every slight, betrayal, or failure because you've already processed the consequences of letting them control you. You've seen what happens to those who rely on external validation or the approval of others. They break when it's withheld. You avoided that trap. By stepping back, observing without clinging, and prioritizing what truly matters, you preserved your energy, your clarity, and ultimately your survival. This isn't about being untouchable. It's about recognizing which battles are worth your engagement and which ones are poison. Detachment also sharpened your instincts. When you aren't blinded by fear, anger, or desperation, you can see situations for what they really are. People, opportunities, threats. They become patterns to read rather than emotions to react to. That clarity allowed you to navigate the chaos that would have crushed almost anyone else. You don't waste time trying to force outcomes or beg for fairness. You move strategically with foresight, patience, and a level of calm most people can't even imagine. Ultimately, this detachment is not a weakness. It's the armor that kept you standing. It's why damage that would have erased 99% of people barely left a mark on you. You didn't need to fight every fight or carry every burden. You evolved to let go of what could kill you while holding on to exactly what would let you endure. That quiet, calculated separation is a superpower most people will never understand, yet it defines exactly why you're still here, unbroken and sharper than ever. Number 6. You're no longer shockable because you've already seen the worst version of everything. Most people go through life reacting to events as if each one is new, as if every betrayal, every loss, every blow carries the same power to destroy them. That's because they haven't truly been tested. You have. You've stared straight into the depths of despair, walked through the worst versions of pain, and felt firsthand how far life can push someone before breaking them. And after experiencing that, the ordinary shocks, the petty betrayals, and even the bigger surprises of life no longer have the same weight. You've recalibrated, you've rewritten your internal system so that danger, chaos, and hurt register differently. They exist, but they don't paralyze you, they inform you. This immunity to shock isn't numbness. You still feel, you still process. But the panic, the fear, the uncontrolled emotional reaction that grips most people, that doesn't happen with you anymore. When others are overwhelmed, frozen, or collapsing under pressure, you're already several steps ahead, analyzing, moving, adapting. Your nervous system has been tempered by extreme experience. You've seen how low the world can go, how much pain a person can endure, and you've survived it. That knowledge is a kind of quiet power that keeps you steady when chaos arrives. It also makes you terrifyingly effective. Most people react emotionally, which clouds judgment and drains energy. You don't. You respond strategically, because the worst-case scenarios you've already endured have prepared you for nearly anything. Situations that would have shattered someone else become challenges you can approach methodically. You understand the mechanics of crisis, the patterns of human behavior under pressure, and the predictable ways life tries to push people to their limits. Being unshockable is a rare gift, and it's earned, not given. It's the result of surviving experiences that would erase the majority of people, and it's what allows you to move through life with a calm, almost unnerving confidence, because you know you've already seen the worst and you came out standing. That is why no damage, no chaos, no betrayal, and no unexpected hit can ever catch you off guard again. Number 7. You built a life philosophy out of moments that should have destroyed you. Most people go through life collecting experiences, but rarely do they extract meaning from the pain they endure. They let it pass, often unnoticed, and allow it to shape them unconsciously. You did the opposite. You didn't just survive the chaos, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the hits that would have erased almost anyone else. You used every single one to construct a philosophy, a framework for living that is both unshakable and deeply personal. Every wound became a lesson, every setback a blueprint, and every moment of suffering a test that informed how you would approach the rest of your life. What sets this apart is the intentionality behind it. Most people only react to what happens. You analyze it, dissect it, and transform it into strategy. The damage you took wasn't meaningless because you refused to let it be. Instead of letting pain dictate your thoughts, you allowed it to shape your principles. You identified patterns, learned the rules of human behavior under pressure, and discovered which elements of life were illusions, which were traps, and which were worth investing in. That insight is something most people spend decades searching for, often missing it entirely because they cling to comfort or denial. Your philosophy isn't loud or preachy. It doesn't need validation or recognition. It's subtle, living in the decisions you make, the way you carry yourself, and the calm certainty with which you navigate the world. Others may not see it, but it's powerful. It allows you to predict outcomes, avoid repeated mistakes, and engage with life on terms that almost no one else can understand. In short, you converted devastation into doctrine. You didn't merely endure, you extracted meaning, clarity, and power from every experience that should have broken you. That's why the damage that would have erased 99% of people didn't just leave you standing. It left you with a philosophy that makes you fundamentally different, fundamentally resilient, and fundamentally untouchable in ways most people will never grasp. Number 8. You stopped seeking fairness and mastered adaptation instead. Most people spend their lives waiting for the world to treat them fairly, only to be crushed when it doesn't. They expect life to reward effort proportionally and punish wrongdoing accordingly. That's a setup for constant disappointment, because life rarely works that way. You realize this early on, not out of cynicism, but out of necessity. You didn't have time to wait for fairness. Waiting would have killed you. Instead, you focused on adaptation, the ability to bend, adjust, and move forward regardless of how unjust the situation was. That shift is what separates someone who survives from someone who simply hopes. Adaptation isn't about giving in. It's about survival with intelligence. You learn to read situations for what they actually were, rather than what you wished them to be. You accepted the truth of human behavior, the randomness of circumstance, and the inevitability of setbacks. Then you built strategies to work around those realities, instead of wasting energy arguing with them. While most people argue with life and complain about injustice, you quietly recalibrate. You find ways to thrive even when the world is stacked against you. That ability to act instead of react is lethal in its effectiveness. It also makes you remarkably unshakable. When you stopped expecting fairness, you stopped being vulnerable to disappointment. When everyone else is collapsing because life didn't hand them what they thought they deserved, you're already steps ahead, adjusting, moving, and finding the path that actually exists rather than the one that should exist. That mindset allows you to turn chaos into opportunity and adversity into advantage. This kind of survival instinct is rare. Most people are broken not by what happens to them, but by the expectation that the world will be just. You broke free from that trap. You didn't need life to be fair. You only needed to be flexible, adaptable, and relentless. That's why damage that would have erased 99% of people barely left a mark on you. You mastered the art of adaptation, and in doing so, you became impossible to defeat by circumstances, opinions, or setbacks. Number 9, you operate with a kind of self-trust that only comes from being left with no one else. Most people build their sense of security on the presence of others, friends, family, mentors, or partners. They rely on external validation, approval, or support to navigate the world. But you didn't have that luxury. Life left you alone at moments when most people would have collapsed under the pressure, and in that emptiness, something rare was forged, an unshakable self-trust. You learned that when everyone else abandons you, when the world doesn't intervene or protect you, the only thing you can rely on is yourself. That trust isn't learned in comfort. It's earned in isolation, under fire, and through the relentless act of surviving without anyone else to lean on. Self-trust like that changes how you move through life. Decisions become faster, cleaner, and more precise because you're no longer second-guessing yourself based on someone else's opinion. When others falter, panic, or seek reassurance, you remain steady. You've proven to yourself repeatedly that you can handle extremes, that you can rebuild, adapt, and thrive, even when every external factor is against you. That history of surviving your own worst circumstances removes doubt in a way no pep talk or encouragement ever could. This kind of trust also gives you freedom. You're no longer tethered to people or expectations that might fail you. You don't compromise your boundaries, dilute your principles, or bend to comfort others' perception of you. You act decisively because you know that your judgment, honed in isolation and tested in extreme adversity, is enough. Most people never reach this level. They live their lives afraid of being alone or needing someone else to guide them. You've already walked that path and come out standing stronger than ever. Being left alone wasn't a setback. It was your crucible. It forced you to become your own anchor, your own guide, and your own source of stability. That rare, quiet self-trust allows you to move through life with a confidence that can't be shaken. And it's precisely why the damage that would have destroyed 99% of people only made you sharper, wiser, and fundamentally untouchable. Number 10. You can't be manipulated anymore because you've already been broken in every direction. Manipulation works because most people have weak spots, insecurities, fears, attachments, and expectations that others can exploit. But you've already walked through the fire that exposes every vulnerability. You've been betrayed, deceived, and pushed to the edge from every angle possible, and in surviving, you've seen exactly how the world tries to pull people's strings. That knowledge rewired you. It didn't just toughen your exterior, it recalibrated your instincts. Now attempts to control or manipulate you feel obvious because you've studied the patterns firsthand. When someone tries to deceive or pressure most people, panic or confusion often sets in. They question themselves, doubt their judgment, or bend under the weight of persuasion. You don't. Your reactions are measured, deliberate, and unshakable because you've faced worse. Every tactic, every threat, every emotional ploy that might break someone else has already crossed your path, and you've survived. That experience has given you an almost preternatural ability to read motives, anticipate moves, and protect your autonomy. You see manipulation not as chaos, but as predictable behavior to navigate around. This immunity to control isn't arrogance, it's earned clarity. You've learned that people will try to exploit fear, guilt, or desire, and you've also learned how little power they have over someone who has truly faced their own destruction and come out whole. You've internalized that your responses are yours alone and cannot be commandeered by someone else's agenda. That quiet confidence is magnetic and unsettling to those who rely on control. They recognize, often subconsciously, that their usual levers won't work on you. Being unmanipulable is a form of freedom that most people never reach because they haven't been broken and rebuilt. You have. The damage that would have erased 99% of people only sharpened your awareness, gave you unmatched emotional intelligence, and rendered you untouchable to coercion. You don't just survive influence, you neutralize it without struggle, simply by existing with the knowledge that no external force can override the strength you forged from being broken in every possible direction. Number 11, you're dangerous because you no longer negotiate your worth. Most people spend their lives bargaining for recognition, validation, or respect. They shrink themselves to fit others' expectations, compromise their values to be liked, and constantly seek permission to exist at the level they deserve. That's why they break so easily. Their sense of worth is always contingent on someone else's approval. You don't operate that way anymore. The damage you've endured taught you a hard truth. Your value is inherent, non-negotiable, and entirely your responsibility. You no longer plead for a seat at the table, and that alone makes you dangerous to a world built on compliance and dependence. Dangerous doesn't mean violent or aggressive. It means unyielding. You don't argue for respect. You command it simply by existing as someone who refuses to settle for less than they deserve. That kind of self-assurance is rare because most people tie their worth to performance, luck, or external validation. You've untangled yourself from all that. Your self-worth is measured by your survival, your endurance, and the understanding that no one else has the power to define your value. Once you internalize that, everything changes. You move through life on your own terms, and anyone who tries to undermine you quickly realizes that you cannot be bent, bargained with, or diminished. This clarity transforms every interaction. Relationships, work, and social dynamics are no longer a battlefield for approval. They are arenas for choice. You choose where to invest your energy, who deserves your loyalty, and which battles are worth fighting. That selective approach is intimidating to most people because it exposes a level of control and confidence they can't replicate. The damage that would have erased 99% of people didn't just leave you standing, it leveled the playing field. You emerged with an unshakable sense of your own worth, and with that comes power. You are dangerous not because you seek to hurt others, but because you refuse to let anyone diminish you. Your presence alone forces the world to adjust, to respect, or to step aside, and that is a form of strength most people will never understand, but can't ignore. Number 12. You lost illusions that keep most people fragile. Most people live their lives clinging to illusions, ideas of fairness, loyalty, permanence, or predictability. They assume that good people will always act well, that promises mean something, and that the world operates on logic and decency. Those illusions make them fragile because when reality inevitably shatters them, the shock is unbearable. You don't live like that anymore. The damage you've endured stripped those illusions away piece by piece until you were left facing the world exactly as it is, unpredictable, often cruel, and rarely aligned with expectations. And that brutal clarity, it made you almost unbreakable. Losing illusions doesn't make life easier, it makes it sharper. You stop being surprised by betrayal, abandonment, or failure because you no longer believed in guarantees that never existed. That doesn't mean you became cold. It means you became strategic. You see situations for what they truly are rather than what you wish them to be. People's words are data, actions are proof, and promises are tested over time, not assumed. That clarity allows you to navigate life with precision while others are lost in disappointment or denial. It also makes you incredibly self-reliant. Where most people depend on assumptions about trust, fairness, or loyalty, you depend only on what you can verify and control. That independence is a form of power. You don't waste time or energy on illusions that will inevitably fail. And that focus gives you an advantage few others can match. You've turned reality into a map rather than a maze filled with traps disguised as hope. Being free of illusions is liberating. It allows you to engage with life on your own terms, to anticipate outcomes without panic, and to operate with a calm that unnerves others. The damage that would have erased 99% of people didn't just leave you standing, it forced you to see clearly, to act wisely, and to exist without the fragile crutches most people cling to. That clarity is not just survival, it's mastery, and it makes you fundamentally different from everyone who hasn't been tested in the same way. Number 13. You became the kind of person who doesn't fear endings because you've rebuilt from nothing before. Most people live in constant fear of loss, losing relationships, opportunities, stability, or status. That fear shapes every choice they make, often keeping them trapped in situations that no longer serve them because the idea of starting over feels unbearable. You don't operate that way. You've experienced endings that would have destroyed almost anyone, and not only did you survive, but you rebuilt yourself from the ground up each time. That repeated reconstruction taught you something rare. Endings are not the end. They are opportunities disguised as crises. Your lack of fear doesn't come from ignorance or detachment. It comes from experience. You know what it feels like to have everything stripped away, to stand in the ruins of your life, and to recognize that nothing you had is coming back. Most people would crumble under that weight. But you learned to act anyway. You rebuilt by necessity, not by desire, and in doing so, you trained yourself to see endings as the raw material for a stronger, sharper version of yourself. Every collapse became a lesson in resourcefulness, every failure a blueprint for resilience, and every loss a chance to redefine your priorities and principles. This perspective changes everything. While others cling desperately to what is familiar, you move forward without hesitation. You don't panic when circumstances shift or when people leave. You don't waste energy mourning what cannot be changed. Instead, you assess, adapt, and rebuild with precision. That's why your presence in life feels unshakable. You are not dependent on continuity or the security of permanence. Your power comes from knowing that no matter what ends, you can always rise again, stronger and more capable than before. The damage that would have erased 99% of people didn't just leave you standing. It taught you mastery over endings. You have learned to embrace the void, to use it strategically, and to rebuild without fear or hesitation. That's why you are untouchable in ways most people will never understand. Endings don't intimidate you because you've already rewritten yourself from nothing, and each reconstruction makes you more unbreakable than ever. Number 14, your resilience isn't inspirational, it's engineered. Most people talk about resilience as if it's a vague quality, something that appears magically when life gets hard. They frame it as a trait you either have or you don't, often romanticizing it as if enduring pain is enough to make you strong. That's not how it works for you. Your resilience isn't accidental or inspirational, it's engineered. Every trial, every betrayal, every blow that should have erased you was studied, processed, and transformed into a system for survival. You didn't stumble through life hoping to be resilient. You built resilience like an architect builds a fortress, methodically, intentionally, and with precision. This engineering requires ruthless self-awareness. You've examined every failure, every weak point, every moment of vulnerability to understand what could break you and how to prevent it. Unlike most people who let life randomly shape them, you took the raw material of your experiences and constructed strategies to endure. You learned not just to survive pain, but to anticipate it, to absorb it without losing function, and to transform it into strength. Every setback became a blueprint for your next level of durability, and every hit was a chance to refine your mental, emotional, and physical frameworks. What sets this apart is that it isn't flashy or performative. You don't need applause or recognition for surviving. Your resilience operates quietly but with unshakable efficiency. It's present in the way you make decisions, the calm with which you confront challenges, and the clarity you carry when chaos surrounds you. Most people react, you respond. Most people crumble, you adapt. Most people hope, you implement. The damage that would have destroyed 99% of people didn't just leave you standing, it left you optimized. Your endurance is now a precise mechanism, a combination of strategy, experience, and unbreakable willpower. This is why you are untouchable, not because you are invincible, but because you have intentionally built yourself to survive, thrive, and evolve in ways that make conventional weakness irrelevant. Your resilience isn't a story to inspire, it's a system, a machine, and a proof that someone can take life's worst and come out engineered to endure anything. Conclusion: you didn't just survive what would have erased 99% of people. You evolved. Every blow, every betrayal, every loss was absorbed, analyzed, and transformed into something that made you stronger, sharper, and more unshakable. You stopped waiting for validation, adapted faster than the chaos could spread, and turned suffering into information instead of identity. Your strength isn't loud. It's deliberate, precise, and quietly unstoppable. You learned to detach when necessary, to move beyond shock, and to build a personal philosophy out of moments that should have destroyed you. You stopped seeking fairness and mastered adaptation. You operate with a self-trust forged in isolation, cannot be manipulated, refuse to negotiate your worth and see the world without illusions. Endings don't scare you because you've rebuilt from nothing, and your resilience isn't accidental, it's engineered. Every lesson, every scar, every challenge has created someone fundamentally different, someone almost impossible to break. You've turned adversity into power, chaos into strategy, and survival into mastery. The truth is brutal but simple. Damage didn't define you, it refined you. What would have erased most people only sharpened your instincts, strengthened your mind, and elevated your presence in ways that most will never comprehend. You stand not because life was fair or gentle, but because you refused to surrender, because you built yourself from the inside out with intelligence, precision, and unwavering will. That is the mark of someone extraordinary, someone whose journey isn't just about surviving, it's about transcending. If this resonates with you, and you want to dive deeper into understanding the mindset of unstoppable people, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you found this valuable, share it with someone who needs to see it, and leave a comment telling us how you've transformed your own challenges into strength. Stay tuned, because the journey of mastering yourself has only just begun. Stay blessed always.